part 5. Kinderhook plates and translator claims. This is a quote from Joseph Smith Jr. from History of the Church, Volume 5, Chapter 19. I insert pictures of the six brass plates found near Kinderhook. I have translated a portion of them and find that they contain a history of the person with whom they were found. He was a descendant of Ham, through the loins of the Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and that he received his kingdom from the ruler of the heaven and earth. Quote, Kinderhook plates brought to Joseph Smith appear to be a 19th century hoax. August 1981, Enzyme. 1. Kinderhook plates. Church historians continued to insist on the authenticity of the Kinderhook plates until 1980, when an examination conducted by the Chicago Historical Society, possessor of one plate, proved it was a 19th century creation. This was published in the LDS Historian by Richard Bushman in Rough Rolling Stone. So there are, in here, there's 6 pictures of these. That's what they look like. Okay. Okay. The plates were named after the town in which they were found, Kinderhook, Illinois. A farmer claimed he dug the plates out of a mound. They took the plates to Joseph Smith for examination, and he translated a portion of it. Not only did Joseph not discern the fraud, he added to the fraud by, quote, translating the fake plates. The LDS Church now concedes it's a hoax. So what does this tell us about Joseph Smith's gift of translation? 2. Book of Abraham. As outlined in the Book of Abraham section, Joseph Smith got everything wrong about the papyri, the facsimile, the names, the gods, the scene context, the fact that the papyri and pictures were from the 1st century CE, funerary text, who was male, who was female, etc. It was gibberish. There is not one single non-LDS Egyptologist who supports Joseph Book of Abraham, its claims, or Joseph's translations. Even LDS Egyptologists acknowledge that there are serious problems with the Book of Abraham and Joseph's claim. Joseph Smith made a claim that he could translate ancient documents. This is a testable claim. Joseph failed the test with the Book of Abraham, and he failed the test with the Kinderhook plates. With this modus operandi and track record, how can I expect to believe that Joseph Smith translated the Keystone Book of Mormon, and that he translated it with a rock and a hat? That the gold plates that ancient prophets went through all the time in effort making, engraving, compiling, abridging, preserving, hiding, and transporting were clueless? Moroni's 5,000-mile journey lugging the gold plates from Mesoamerica, if you believe the unofficial apologists, all the way to New York to bury the plates, then come back as a resurrected angel to instruct Joseph for 4 years, only for Joseph to translate instead using just a rock and a hat. A rock he found digging on a neighbor's property in 1822, in which he later used for treasure hunting. A year before Moroni appeared in his bedroom, and 5 years before he got the gold plates and Urim and Thummim. Joseph Smith claimed to have translated 3 ancient texts: the Book of Abraham, proven a fraud, the Kinderhook plates, found to be a hoax, and the Book of Mormon, the only one of the 3 for which we do not have the original. I'm sure he was only wrong 2 out of 3. After all, why wouldn't you buy a 3rd car from a man who has already sold you 2 clunkers? Testimony and spiritual witness. Quote from Fair Mormon blog. Quote, we should not just go on our own feelings on everything. Granted, our feelings can be wrong. Of course they can be wrong. We do indeed advocate for the full use of the Holy Spirit to guide us to the truth. How does the Holy Spirit work? How does he testifying of the truth and witness unto us? Through feelings. ... From a quote from an LDS church-owned Bonneville Communications, quote, our unique strength is the ability to touch the hearts and minds of our audiences, evoking first feeling, then first thought, and finally action. We call this uniquely powerful brand of creative, quote, heart style, copyrighted, strategic emotional advertising that stimulates response. Facts aren't feelings. I mean, that's not what I said. I mean, feelings are not facts. That's what it's meant to say. Feelings are not facts. By Barton Goldsmith, a PhD psychotherapist. So, number one. Every major religion has members who claim the same thing. God or God's spirit bore witness to them that their religion, prophet, pope, leader, books, and teachings are true. And/or teachings are true. 2. Just as it would be arrogant for an FLDS member, a Jehovah's Witness, a Catholic, a Seventh-day Adventist, or a Muslim to deny a Latter-day Saints spiritual experience and testimony of the truthfulness of Mormonism, it would likewise be arrogant for Latter-day Saints to deny other spiritual experiences and testimonies of truthfulness of their own religion. Yet every religion cannot be right and true together. An LDS member in 2017. I know that Joseph Smith was a true prophet. I know that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the one and only true church. I know the Book of Mormon is true. I know that Thomas S. Monson is the Mormon's true prophet today. An FLDS member in 2017. I know that Joseph Smith was a true prophet. I know the fundamentalist Church of the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the one and only true church. I know the Book of Mormon is true. I know that Warren Jeffs is the Lord's true prophet today. An RLDS member in 1975. I know that Joseph Smith was a true prophet. I know the reorganized Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is the one and only true church. I know the Book of Mormon is true. I know that W. Wallace Smith is Lord's true prophet today. LDCJC member in 2017. I know that Joseph Smith was a true prophet. I know the Latter-day Church of Jesus Christ is the one and only true church. I know the Book of Mormon and the Book of Jeraneck are true. I know that Matthew P. Gill is the Lord's true prophet, seer, revelator, and translator today. So, same method. Read, ponder, pray. Different testimonies, all 4 testimonies cannot simultaneously be true. Is this the best God can come up with in revealing his truth to his children? Only 0.2% of the world's population are members of God's one true church. This is God's model and standard of efficiency? ? Praying about the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon does not follow that the LDS Church is true. The FLDS also believe in the Book of Mormon. So does dozens of Mormon splinter groups. They all believe in the divinity of the Book of Mormon as well. Praying about the first vision. So which account is true? They all can't be true together as they conflict with one another. 3. If God's method to revealing truth through its feelings, it is very ineffective and unreliable method. We have thousands of religions and billions of members who religions say that theirs is the God's only truth, and everyone else is wrong because they felt or God's spirit revealed it to them. Each religion has believers who believe that their spiritual experience are more authentic and powerful than those who adhere to other religions. They cannot all be right together, if at all. Number 4. Joseph Smith received a revelation through the peep stone in his hat to send Hiram Page and Oliver Cowdery to Toronto, Canada for the sole purpose of selling the copyright of the Book of Mormon, which is another concern in itself. Why would God command to sell the copyright of his word? The mission failed, and the prophet was asked why his revelation was wrong. Joseph decided to inquire of the Lord regarding that question. Book of Mormon witnesses David Whitmer testifying, and behold, the following revelation came through the stone. Some revelations are of God, and some revelations are of man, and some revelations are of the devil. So we see that the revelation to go to Toronto and sell copyright was not of God, but was of the devil or the heart of a man, end quote. So how are we supposed to know what revelations are from God, the devil, or from the heart of man if even the prophet Joseph Smith couldn't tell? Elder Boyd K. Packer said the following: "Be ever on guard, lest you be deceived by inspiration from an unworthy source. You can be given false spiritual messages. There are counterfeit spirits, just as there are counterfeit angels. Be careful lest you be deceived, for the devil may come disguised as an angel of light. The spiritual part of us and the emotional part of us are so closely linked that it's possible to mistake an emotional impulse for something spiritual. We occasionally find people who receive what they assume to be a spiritual prompting from God, but when those promptings are either centered in the emotion or from the adversary. So, what kind of method is this if Heavenly Father allows Satan to interfere with our direct line of communication to God, sincerely asking for and seeking answers? Are we now to expect to not only figure out when the prophet is speaking as a prophet and not a man, while also trying to figure out whether our answers to our prayers are from God, the devil, or from ourselves? Number 5. As a believing Mormon, I saw a testimony as more than just a spiritual experiences and feelings. I thought that we had, quote, evidence and, quote, logic on our side based on the correlated narrative I was fed by the church about its origins. I lost this confidence when I discovered that the gap between what the church teaches about its origins and what the primary historical documents actually showed happened, and between what history shows what happened and what science shows what happened, couldn't be further apart. I read an experience that explains it in this way, quote, I resigned from the LDS Church and informed my bishop that the reasons had to do with discovering the real history of the church. When I was done, he asked about the spiritual witness I had surely received as a missionary. I agreed with him. I felt sure of a witness as strong as he currently felt. I gave him an analogy of Santa. I believed in Santa until I was 12. I refused to listen to reason for my friends who had discovered the truth much earlier. I just knew. However, once I learned the facts, feelings changed. I told them that Mormons have to redefine faith in order to believe. Traditionally, faith is an instrument to bridge that gap between where science, history, and logic end, and what you hope to be true. Mormonism redefines faith as embracing what you hope to be true in spite of science, fact, and history. Number 6. Paul H. Dunn. Dunn was the general authority of the church for many years. He was a very popular speaker who told powerful faith-promoting war and baseball stories. Many times Dunn shared these stories in the presence of the prophet, apostles, and the 70s. Stories such as how God protected him as enemy machine gun bullets ripped away at his clothes, gear, and helmet without ever touching his skin, and how he was preserved by the Lord. Members of the church shared how they felt the Spirit so strongly as they listened to Dunn's testimonies and stories. Unfortunately, Dunn was later caught lying about the war and baseball stories and was forced to apologize to its member. He became the first general authority to gain emeritus status and was moved from the church's public life. What about the members who felt the Spirit from Dunn's fabricated and false stories? What does that say about the Spirit and what the Spirit really is? Number 7. The following are counsels from members of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles on how to gain a testimony. From Boyd K. Packer, he said, it is not unusual to have a missionary say, how can I bear testimony until I get one? How can I testify that God lives and Jesus is the Christ and the gospel is true? If I do not have such testimony, that wouldn't that be dishonest? Oh, if I could teach you this one principle, a testimony is to be found in the bearing of it. From Dallin H. Oaks, Besties with Martin Hoffman, said, another way to seek a testimony seems astonishing when compared with the methods of obtaining other knowledge. We gain or strengthen a testimony by bearing it. Someone even suggested that testimonies are better gained on the feet bearing them than on the knees praying for them. Neil L. Anderson said, it may come as It may come as you bear your own testimony of the prophet. Consider recording the testimony of Joseph Smith in your own voice, listening to it regularly. Listening to the prophet's testimony in your own voice will help bring the witness you seek. So, in other words, repeat things over and over and over and over until you convince yourself that it's true. Just keep telling yourself, I know it's true, I know it's true, I know it's true, I know it's true, until actually believing it. And now you have a testimony that the church is true and Joseph Smith was a prophet, right? So how is this honest? How is this ethical? What kind of advice are these apostles giving when they're telling you that if you don't have a testimony, bear one anyway? How is this not lying? There's a difference between saying you know something and saying you believe something. What about the members and investigators who are the other side listening to your quote testimony? How are they supposed to know whether you actually do have a testimony of Mormonism or if you're okay just following the Packers, Oaks, and Anderson's counsel and you're just lying your way into one? 8. Number 8. There are many members who share their testimonies that Spirit told them that they were to marry this person or to go to this school or to move to this location or start up this business or invest in this investment. They rely on Spirit in making critical life decisions. When the decision turns out to be not only the correct but disastrous, the fault lies on the individual and never on the Spirit. The individual didn't have the discernment, or it was in the individual's hormones talking, or it was the individual's greed talking, or it was the individual wasn't worthy at any time. This poses a profound flaw and dilemma. If individuals can be so convinced that they're being led by the Spirit, but yet be so wrong about what the Spirit tells them, how can they be sure of its reliability of the same exact process and method in telling them that Mormonism is true? How are faith and feelings reliable pathways to the truth? Is there anything one couldn't believe based on faith and feelings? If faith and feelings can lead to believe and accept the truth claims of any one of the 100,000s of contradictory religions and thousands of contradictory gods, then how are faith and feelings reliable pathways to truth? Number 9. I felt the Spirit while watching Saving Private Ryan and Schindler's List, both rated R and horribly violent movies. I also felt the Spirit watching Forrest Gump and The Lion King. After learning these disturbing issues, I attended a conference where former Mormons shared their stories. The same Spirit I felt telling me that Mormonism is true and that Joseph Smith was a prophet is the same Spirit I felt in all of those experiences. Does this mean that the Lion King is true, that Mufasa was real and true? Does this mean that Forrest Gump is real and that the story happened in real life? Why did I feel the Spirit as I listened to the stories of apostates sharing how they discovered for themselves that Mormonism is not true? Why is the Spirit so unreliable and inconsistent? How can I trust such an inconsistent and contradictory source for knowing that Mormonism is worth betting my life, time, money, heart, mind, and obedience to? The following... Oh, yeah. End of question. The next part is priesthood restoration. A quote from an LDS historian and scholar, Richard Bushman, says, the late appearance of these accounts raises the possibility of later fabrication. 1. Like the first vision story, none of the members of the church or Joseph Smith's family had ever heard it prior to 1932, about a priesthood restoration from John the Baptist or Peter, James, or John. Although the priesthood is now thought to have been restored in 1829, Joseph and Oliver made no such claim until 1932, if that. Even in 1932, there were no claims of a restoration of priesthood, just a reception of the priesthood, and there are certainly no specific claims that John the Baptist, Peter, James, and John. Like the first vision accounts, the story later got more elaborate and bold with specific claims and miraculous visitations from resurrecting John the Baptist, Peter, James, and John. LDS historian and scholar Richard Bushman acknowledged this by saying, summarizing the key events in his religious life, is an 1830 statement he mentioned translation, but said nothing about the restoration of priesthood or a vision or a visit from an angel. The first compilation of revelations in 1833 also omitted an account of John the Baptist. David Whitmer later told in an interview that he had heard nothing of John the Baptist until 4 years after the church's organization. Not until writing in 1832 history did Joseph include reception of the holy priesthood by ministering of the angels to administer the letter of the gospel. Among the cardinal events of his history, a glancing reference at best, the late appearance of these accounts raises possibility of later fabrication. So why did it take 3+ years for Joseph or Oliver to tell members of the church about the restoration of the priesthood under the hands of John the Baptist, Peter, James, and John? 2. David Whitmer, one of the witnesses of the Book of Mormon, had this to say about the priesthood restoration. I never heard that an angel had ordained Joseph and Oliver to the Aaronic priesthood until the year 1832, 1835, or 1836 in Ohio. I do not believe that John the Baptist ever ordained Joseph and Oliver. 3. Joseph Smith and Oliver Cowdery changed the wording of an earlier revelation when they compiled the 1835 Doctrine and Covenants, adding verses about the appearances of Elijah, John the Baptist, Peter, James, and John, as if those appearances were mentioned in the earlier revelation in the Book of Commandments, which they weren't. Sorry. I'm not going to read all that. 4. The restoration of the Aaronic priesthood under the hand of John the Baptist has been recorded prior to 1933. It would have been expected to appear in the Book of Commandments. However, nowhere in the Book of Commandments is this miraculous and doctrinal vital event recorded. Had the restoration of the Melchizedek priesthood under the hands of Peter, James, and John recorded prior to 1833. Jesus. Perps. However, nowhere in the Book of Commandments is this documented. It wasn't until 1835 edition of Doctrine and Covenants that Joseph and Oliver backdated and retrofitted the priesthood restoration events to an 1829-1830 time period, none of which existed in any previous church records, including Doctrine and Covenants' precursor Book of Commandments, nor the original church history as published in the Evening and Morning Star. 6. Melchizedek priesthood given by Lyman White, not Peter, James, and John. During the turbulent meeting, Joseph ordained 5 men in the high priesthood, and Lyman White ordained 18 others, including Joseph. The ordinations to the high priesthood marked a milestone in Mormon ecclesiology. Until that time, the word priesthood, although it appeared in the Book of Mormon, had not been used in Mormon sermonizing or modern revelations. Later accounts applied the term retroactively, but the June 1831 conference marked its first appearance in contemporary record. The Melchizedek priesthood, Mormons now believe, has been bestowed a year or two earlier than with the visit of Peter, James, and John. So if so, why did the contemporaries say that the high priesthood was given for the first time in June of 1831? Joseph Smith himself was ordained to this, quote, high priesthood by Lyman White. If Joseph was already an elder and impossible, what was the necessity of being ordained again? If Peter, James, and John ordained Joseph Smith to the Melchizedek priesthood in 1829, why did Lyman White ordain Joseph Smith to the Melchizedek priesthood again in 1831? The actual minutes of this June 1831 conference showing Joseph Smith Jr. and Sidney Rigdon were ordained to the high priesthood under the hand of B.R. Lyman White can be viewed on the official Joseph Smith Papers website. witnesses. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. The Book of Mormon witnesses and their testimony of the gold plates are irrelevant. It does not matter whether the 19th century treasure diggers with magical worldviews saw some gold plates or not. It doesn't matter because of this simple fact. Joseph did not use the gold plates for translating the Book of Mormon. The testimony of the 3 and 8 witnesses to the Book of Mormon is a key part to the testimony of many members in the church. Some even base their testimony of the truthfulness of the Book of Mormon on these 11 witnesses and their claims. As a missionary, I was instructed to teach investigators about the testimonies of the witnesses to the Book of Mormon as part of boosting the book's credibility. There are several critical problems for relying and belittling on these 19th century men as credible witnesses. Magical worldview. In order to truly understand the Book of Mormon witnesses and the issues with their claims, one must understand the magical worldview of many people in the 19th century New England. These are people who believed in folk magic, divining rods, visions, second sight, peep stones and hat, treasure hunting, money digging, glass looking, and so on. Many people believed in buried treasure, the ability to see spirits, and their dwelling places within the local hills and elsewhere. This is one reason why treasure digging as the paid service was practiced. Joseph Smith, his father, and his brother Hiram had engaged in treasure hunting from 1820 to 1827. Joseph was hired by folks like Josiah Stowell, who Joseph mentions in his history. In 1826, Joseph was arrested and brought to court in Bainbridge, New York, on complaint of Stowell's nephew, who accused Joseph of being a disorderly person and an impostor. It would not have been unusual during this time for a neighbor, friend, or even a stranger to come up to you and say, "I received a vision of the Lord," and for you to respond in all seriousness, "Well, what did the Lord say?" This is one of the reasons why 21st century Mormons, one including myself, are so confused and bewildered when hearing stuff like Joseph Smith using a peepstone in the hat, or Oliver Cowdery using a divining rod or dowsing rod, such as illustrated below. The use of divining rods, such as the one above, is actually mentioned in the scriptures. In Doctrine and Covenants 8, the following heading provides context for the discussion. Quote, "Revelation given through Joseph Smith, the prophet, to Oliver Cowdery at Harmony, Pennsylvania, April 1829. In the course of translating of the Book of Mormon, Oliver, who continued to serve as a scribe, writing at the prophet's dictation, desired to be endowed with the gift of translation. The Lord responded to his supplication by granting this revelation." I'm not reading on that. So from the D&C account, we don't really know much about what exactly the quote, "the gift of Aaron" is that Oliver Cowdery received. So what is the gift of Aaron? And the text provides several clues. Oliver has a history of using it since it, quote, "it has told him many things," end quote. It is the gift of God. It is to be held in Oliver's hand and kept there, impervious to any power. It allows Oliver to do marvelous works. It is the work of God. The Lord will speak through it, and Oliver will tell him anything he asks it. It works through faith, and it enables Oliver to translate ancient sacred documents. Whatever. With only these clues, the gift of Aaron is difficult to identify. The task becomes much easier, however, when you look at the original revelation contained in the Book of Commandments, a predecessor volume to the Doctrine and Covenants, used by the LDS Church before 1835. Specifically, Section 7 of the Book of Commandments contains the warning that was changed in the Doctrine and Covenants 8. The term gift of Aaron was originally rod and rod of nature in the Book of Commandments. So what is this, quote, gift of Aaron mentioned in D&C 8? It is a rod of nature. What is a rod of nature? It is a divining rod or dowsing rod, is still illustrated as above, which Oliver Cowdery used to hunt for buried treasure. Cowdery's use of divining rod to search for buried treasure invokes similar images of Joseph Smith hunting for treasure with a peepstone in the hat. Oliver also wished to use his divining rod in the same way Joseph Smith used his stone in the hat, to translate ancient documents. Oliver. So if Oliver culture gifts was really the use of a divining rod, and it was, then this tells us that the origins of the church are much more rooted in folk magic and superstition than we've been led to believe by the LDS Church's whitewashing of its origins and history. Witnesses. We are told that the witnesses never disavowed their testimonies, but we have not come to know these men or investigated what else they said about their experiences. There are 11 witnesses to the Book of Mormon: Martin Harris, Oliver Cowdery, Hiram Page, David Whitmer, John Whitmer, Christian Whitmer, Jacob Whitmer, Peter Whitmer Jr., Hiram Smith, Samuel Smith, and Joseph Smith Sr., all who shared a common worldview of second sight, magic, and treasure digging, which drew them together in the first place in 1829. So, the following are several facts and observations on the three of the Book of Witnesses. Martin Harris. Martin Harris was anything but a skeptical witness. He was known by many of his peers as an unstable, gullible, and superstitious man. Brigham Young once said of Martin, "As for Martin Harris, he had not much to apostatize from. He possessed a wild, speculative brain. I've heard Joseph correct him and exhort him for repentance for teaching false doctrines." Reports assert that he and other witnesses never literally saw the gold plates, but only an object said to be the plates covered with the cloth. Additionally, Martin Harris had direct conflict of interest in being a witness. He was deeply financially invested in the Book of Mormon, as he mortgaged his farm to finance the book. The following are the same accounts of the superstitious side of Martin Harris. Once, while reading the scripture, he reportedly mistook a candle's sputtering as a sign that the devil desired to stop him. Another time, he excitedly awoke from his sleep, believing that a creature as large as a dog had been upon his chest, though a nearby associate could not find anything to confirm his fears. Several hostile and perhaps unreliable accounts told the visionary experiences with Satan and Christ. Harris once reporting that Christ had been poised on a roof beam. So, clearly a little fucked up. So before Harris became a Mormon, he had already changed his religion at least 5 times. So after Joseph Smith, Harris continued with his earlier pattern by joining and leaving 5 more different sects that included the James String and other Mormon offshoots and the Shakers. Not only did Harris join other religions, he testified and witnessed for them. It was reported that Martin Harris, quote, declared repeatedly that he had such evidence for a Shaker book that he had for the Book of Mormon. Cool. Okay. David Whitmer. Yeah, David Whitmer was incredible. Oliver Cowdery, like Joseph and most of the other Book of Mormon witnesses, Oliver and his family were treasure hunters. Oliver preferred tools of trade, as mentioned above, was the divining rod. He was also known as Rod's Man, along with other witnesses. Oliver held a magical world view. Oliver Cowdery was not an objective and independent witness, as scribe for the Book of Mormon, co-founder of the church, and cousin to Joseph Smith. A conflict of interest existed in Oliver being a witness. Second sight. People believe that they could see things as vision in their head. They called it second sight. We call it imagination. There is no difference to these people if they saw it with their natural eyes or in their spiritual eyes, as both were one and the same. So the affidavit, the closest thing that they have for the original document with testimonies is a printer manuscript written by Oliver Cowdery. So they just wrote everyone else's signature and he just wrote them. No one signed it. Purge 6 coming up.